CIA gave us a school of thought where we had to understand the psychological advantages that we had over other people.
The agency teaches us to recognize it because we use it, and that is we all have personas.
One of my favorite personas that you have, I want to call it ditzy, but it's not ditzy.
The little lady persona.
Yes! So you're using kind of inherent sexism to get what you want. Do you see why I call you brilliant?
That's all soft power, and it's really powerful.
Right. Because
hard power, is just a bunch of threatening, and you can lose your spot at any time. But soft power lasts. I went for an early morning grocery shop yesterday, and when I go to the grocery store in the morning, I always go to the same one because it's 5 minutes away.
Right.
I always see this older gentleman who's a bagger, and he actually commented yesterday. He doesn't normally, we have like small talk sometimes, but yesterday he was like, "I see you in here a lot." Like, yeah.
You must have a huge family.
It's funny because
we don't,
but we eat. We eat so much. I'm in the grocery store so much. So yesterday we were having this really lovely little conversation about family and food and whatever. And then when he, I was finished checking out, he finished bagging. They always ask if you need help. I always decline. And he was like, "All right, have a blessed day, honey." And as I'm walking away, I had the thought, because and I don't know if it's a thing in the South or if it's just me or, but every time an older gentleman calls me something like honey or sweetie or some kind of name, I always walk away thinking to myself, there are women out there who would be really offended at being called honey, right? That they would take it as demeaning or patriarchal or whatever, but I really don't mind it. And I remember when I was in my 20s, I used to call children honey. It was just, for me, it was just this Southern thing that you said. But it's just, I always find it interesting that it always just brings back these memories. I remember when I was a kid in the 90s, early 2000s, whatever. And, the women who would get so angry at being called anything or having the door held open for them. And I'm like, it's okay, really. Like, let them do it.
So I'm a grown man and I get called honey.
Do you really?
Oh my gosh, yeah. It's not ever insulting or offensive to me.
Yeah.
But I am it's always surprising to me. And we live in Florida, and we live in the South.
Yeah.
Even though if you were in Georgia, just like 50 miles north of us, they tell us that we're not actually in the South, which is really funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I have, especially the next generation, older generation, African-American women specifically in this area, man, they just call me honey all the time. And it makes me feel like a kid again, right? Because it's like, oh, I'm still young.
I'm still honey.
But your story takes me in 5 different directions all at once. But the first thing is, immediately my mind goes to this idea that what you're talking about with women being offended by being called honey or having doors held open, especially late 1990s, early 2000s. Yeah. I feel like what you're talking about is feminism, but I have to be honest, I don't really understand feminism. I'm pretty sure both your mom and my mom were pretty staunch feminists.
Yeah.
Because my mom used to always talk about it, but I never actually understood it.
Well, so it's funny you say it because I would consider you a feminist.
I'm a feminist?
I'm certain you don't consider yourself, because feminism is really just the ideology, the concept that you shouldn't be treated differently, arbitrarily. You shouldn't arbitrarily be kept from doing something just based on your gender.
Isn't that I feel like that's, maybe I'm crazy. I feel like that's kind of common sense. Yes. Nobody should arbitrarily be kept from doing something because of anything. It's arbitrary.
Yeah. So I feel like, my undergraduate degree is in African American and Women's Studies. So African American Studies and Women's Studies.
Can I just tell you, after coming from a military college,
I'm certain that doesn't sound like a real degree.
That does not sound like a real degree. I don't know how there's enough out there to study to even call that a degree.
Oh my gosh,
Well,
there's so much to study.
So the African American part I can kind of understand because there's a long history.
Right.
But
there's
women's
a long history
studies?
with women too. Just putting that out there.
Really?
Yes.
Do I still sound like a feminist or do I sound like something else?
No, because in practice, you're a feminist, right? When
Okay.
you live life, you're a feminist. Like, you're never going to be like, oh, our daughter can't do that because she's a girl. Like, those words will never come out of your mouth, right? So I think oftentimes people have this idea of what a feminist is. Like,
Can I tell you what idea that I think that is? So
I can't wait to hear it.
Well, especially as you're telling me that I might be a feminist that doesn't know I'm a feminist. This is turning into a lot of fun for me.
Okay.
All right. So when I think of feminist, coming from, again, and I'm fully admitting I've never known what a feminist is. But when I think about like what the common idea is of a feminist, you think of like women that act like men, that are like kind of butchy and mean. And no, seriously, women that like want the right to like burn bras and
I knew you were going to bring up burning bras.
it's like the woke before the woke.
No.
It's like pre-woke. That's totally what I think of with feminism. And I'll tell you why. Here's a story, since you love it when I tell stories.
I do love stories.
I grew up in a household, and my father died when I was very young, like months old, less than a year old. And my mom raised me as a single mom in a household with my grandmother, who was also a single lady, a single divorced grandmother, right? So I was raised by two strong women. And my mom, the one story that she always talks about is how she took her bastard son to a women's liberation rights, whatever it's called.
Like a
women's lib.
Yeah.
I don't know what the lib stands for. I really don't know much about this. But she took me to this like women's lib demonstration in Washington, D.C., where they were like protesting Roe versus Wade. But that's like my thing. My thing is my mom took me to a parade or to like a demonstration where she was advocating for women's rights to kill their own babies, right? And I was her bastard child. So I don't understand necessarily what she was trying to communicate there.
That she made a choice because it was available to her. That's what she was.
And the choice was to have me, or like
Yeah.
she would have preferred the choice not to have. I've always interpreted. I have always interpreted that story through the lens of, look at this child that I have that you forced me to have. That is literally how I have always taken her story.
You're killing me now.
So she was.
No,
You're saying she was protesting because she was proud of her choice?
Yes. You can. So this is a whole separate conversation.
That kind of makes me want to change my whole relationship with my mom.
Well, your mom's a great lady.
She is a great lady, but I thought that she was a great lady who like never
rather
wanted to be a
not
mom. Yes, seriously. That is exactly how I have thought of.
Oh
I'm
my
43 years old.
gosh.
I've thought about her a long way this way.
No. She chose. She had the choice. She chose to have you. You're so funny. But anyways, going back to...
That's all the stuff I thought feminism was. I thought it was,
So what's funny
negative. Net negative is definitely how I've interpreted it.
I think your previous point was spot on, right? I wanted to go into civil rights. I ended up going into social work. But, the civil rights, which encompasses, gender, race, sexual orientation, whatever, just like you said, it should be common sense. It should be human to human.
Yeah.
Let's treat each other in a way that's respectful and that we take into consideration without, judging a book by its cover. We take into consideration, how similar we really are. So, instead of, it's funny because there are so many things that traditionally have been, so I think about like space and flight, right? Airplanes and whatever. There's so many things that have, like, for example, we're traditionally male. that didn't need to be traditionally male. Like like our son came back from space camp and he was like, oh, I think somebody's going to be like the first woman to go to the moon. And he's like, you know what's dumb? How has a woman never been to the moon before?
That was pretty cool.
He keeps rereading it. And
that was pretty cool.
I'm like, did you make that up by yourself? Like, did you come to that conclusion by yourself? It's so funny.
I mean, I think only like 11 people ever have been to the moon.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know that it was intentionally anti-woman. But he's super, like the current day astronauts, like the lineup of astronauts for the current projects, like the Artemis project, man, there are tons of women in there.
Yeah.
Like really impressive people, right? That just happen to be females, right?
Right.
But I mean, scientists and doctors and wow, like I think that is probably part of what informs his point. He looks everywhere. You look at NASA's lineup now and there are so many women and he's like, what do you mean a woman's never been to the moon before? That doesn't make any sense.
So it's great because he's coming up in a time where civil rights movements and, feminist movements and, they've come so far. So for him, it really does seem like common sense. Like, how is this ever any different? But, a part of these, in these fields, a part of what allows somebody to go up into space or to fly a jet plane or whatever, there's height requirements. So one of the things I read about some time ago was they make the spacesuits are really expensive. Yeah. They don't make them for every astronaut. They make them a standard size. So if you don't, and same thing with aircraft, right? I think you've told me this, where they make the planes a standard size. Right. If you are too tall or too short,
you just can't be in the airplane.
You just can't be in the
airplane. You can't like put a phone book in the seat of an F-16 to make it so that everybody can fly it.
Although that would make for some kind of great movie or show. I don't know. my dad was just telling us the story of his aunt who sat on 3 phone books and had to tie like a block to her foot to drive the car. I mean, in like the 30s.
And before we get too deep into this awesome conversation, because I really want to connect this idea of feminism with the future and the past that we came from and that our children are moving into, because again, there's a really powerful spy lesson in here.
Yeah.
But I want to take just a minute so that we can thank the sponsor for today's podcast episode. Today's sponsor is Aura. And Aura is a cybersecurity company for the everyday person. And I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of this company. We use their app. We use their product. They absolutely give me peace of mind as a parent, as a professional, as an individual. Now, my identity, my entire business is heavily tied to who I am. So I am always concerned about things like fraud and scams and identity protection and data protection. And these are all priorities that Aura executes on really gracefully, not only through the technology that they use, but through the interface that they give me on the app itself. I'm actually able to check things like my personal data through their Vault system. They have a Vault capability that's present on the app that allows you to actually protect everything from your personal address to your email addresses to your phone number. So it's a really excellent place for me just to check in to make sure that all of my most important data is kept secure and isn't being harvested, sold, or fraudulently stolen from me in some other way. And then not only that, but they have this fantastic package for identity theft and for identity protection so that if my identity is ever compromised, and if you think about it, I've had these situations occur in social media where people have cloned my account or people have opened accounts that look just like my account for fraudulent reasons. I don't even know why they do it. And for me, it's very comforting to know that Aura has a system in place that can actually stop any kind of genuine identity theft, the theft of my social security number, the theft of my credit card numbers, the theft of anything that is truly me. Because even social media can't prevent people from stealing and pretending to be me on social media. But thank goodness people can't actually pretend to be me in credit card statements or financial transactions. So thank you very much to Aura. Aura has been a fantastic help to me, a fantastic help to my family. If you're interested in seeing what Aura can do for you, go ahead and click on the link below in the description and you'll get access to a a 14-day complimentary trial with Aura, or you can visit aura.com/everydayspy and get the same access to start your 2-week complimentary trial to see how Aura applies to you, see how it helps you, see how it protects you. I already know you're going to love it once you try it because I fell in love with it very quickly, and I'm sure that you'll see the value as soon as you click on the link in the description or visit aura.com/everydayspy. Now, let me get back to this conversation because I'm absolutely adoring the fact that I'm a feminist without ever knowing it. And it sounds like my son is a feminist also without ever knowing it.
Yeah.
And so that must mean there are many, many men out there who are feminists without knowing it. Even though coming from my background, it doesn't make me necessarily feel comfortable being called a feminist.
Well, I think...
Because I just want to be called like an equalist. People are people. So why do we have to call it feminism to just see people as people?
Well, and I think that's totally fine too. And I think that what happens is, when you have a group that is oppressed for whatever reason, and they start to rise up and have a voice and to be heard, right? There's this pendulum, right? So the pendulum swings from oppression, from like being silenced to like, I am going to be as loud as I can, right? And then that's where like the bra burning and all the really...
Because that did happen, right?
Yeah.
That's not just like a story.
You can tell how old we are because our parents came to age in like the 60s and 70s, right? So, the pendulum swings to the other side because you're like, I'm tired of being silenced. I just want to be as loud as I can so you hear me. But really where we need to be is somewhere in the middle, right? Like the common sense place is in the middle.
It's interesting because when you are as loud as you want to be, you become very offensive to people.
Yeah, it's too much.
And
it's too far.
Well, I wonder if that's part of what makes it so that there are so many people who have a negative opinion of what feminism is.
Right. Because
the pendulum is swung.
Yeah.
Can I admit something kind of embarrassing?
Yeah, always.
So I never understood how your mom and mine participated in the bra burning days of feminism, but then still wear bras. Seriously, it was something that I never understood. And then, in my own lack of knowledge about anything, I also noticed that in 2017-ish, women stopped wearing bras. Young women around in the city. It's a fashion something. I don't know if it's a statement or if it's just in vogue. I don't know. I don't even know what in vogue means. But you see women everywhere going braless.
Yeah.
And I've wondered, is that feminism again? Is that the eco-friendly version of burning bras? Instead of burning them, you just don't use them at all because burning them would cause greenhouse gases. So
it's the idea that you can be how you want to be. Like if you're a man and you're wearing dress clothes and you wear, right, it's traditional to wear an undershirt, right? Like wearing an undershirt is very similar to wearing a bra. A bra can be practical, or maybe you don't need it and you don't feel like wearing it, and you shouldn't have to worry about people ogling you or judging you because you're not wearing a bra. And it's just this idea that, I'm a human being. I should be able to do things that I want to do and not be judged.
Okay, so I have to push back on this. Because this is where the reality of it is very different from the utility of it. Because you and I came from a school of thought. CIA gave us a school of thought where we had to understand the psychological advantages that we had over other people. So let's take the example of a girl walking around, modern day female walking around, wants to be seen as just a person.
Yeah.
Not true. Because to a potential suitor who she approves of, she wants to be seen as a potential suitor. So ugly, zit-faced, four-eyed guy looks at her, she doesn't want it, it's called ogling.
Yeah.
Super sexy, well-built, handsome guy looks at her, she likes it, she considers it flirtatious. How does that play? How does that work? Same activity, two different guys. It's her interpretation of the two guys that makes one oppressive of her rights and one welcoming of her interests.
Well, I think so. There's a couple things. So one, it depends on how each gentleman acts. If each gentleman acts exactly the same way, where they don't overstep their bounds, they don't touch her, they don't say something rude and nasty, then they are within like normal human behavior. If the guy if both gentlemen look at her and they're like, hey, it's nice to meet you, my name is Bobby, right? They've both done exactly the same thing. If she reacts adversely because one is doesn't look great, then that's on her. Because if they both react the same way, very politely, very gentlemanly, right, then they're not doing anything wrong. The second thing is that I think the agency teaches us something that most people do that they don't realize that they do. And the agency teaches us to recognize it because we use it. And that is, we all have personas. Not just one, we have multiple personas that we put on depending on who we're interacting with. And I think that most people
do that.
Most people do it, and
they're just not aware,
cognizant that they're doing it.
Yep.
And so the CIA teaches us to recognize the personas that we use naturally, and then to cultivate personas that we then use in the field.
That's interesting. I know one of my favorite personas that you have is, I don't even know what the right words are for it. I want to call it ditzy, but it's not ditzy.
The little lady persona.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're like a little lady.
I'm a little lady persona.
Yeah, but it's like, it's unassuming and it's not flashy and it's not attention grabbing. Like, you use this all the time. You are a brilliant, intelligent, well-informed. I'm being honest. You are an awesome person who is also a female. So therefore you are an awesome female. And most of the people who meet you have no idea. Most of the parties you go to, the public settings, like, I've seen you interact with billionaire clients that we have. I've seen you interact with foreign intelligence officers. I've seen you interact with so many people, and the little lady persona, where you just smile nice and you say nice things and you don't ever talk about yourself.
Yeah. So I find I call it the little lady persona, but I think anybody of any gender could use something similar. It's the persona where you come in very non-threatening, right? It's the non-threatening persona where you come in and you stay quiet about yourself. You ask gentle questions about somebody else, not probing, confrontational questions, but just gentle questions, easing in like about their family or about little things, and then moving into deeper questions as they become more comfortable with you. You listen more than you speak.
Yep.
You behave a bit deferential to the other person, because especially when you're meeting somebody for the first time, you don't, even if the other person says something that you disagree with, you don't want to go head to head with them. I mean, when I'm in this persona, when I'm working it like this.
Which is often. This is like your go-to public persona.
Right. You're getting to know that person, right? Your information, data gathering about that person. So you don't want to be like, you think poodles are the best dog? I totally disagree. Yeah. You absolutely don't want to do that. So you defer to them and be like, oh, yeah, I can see your point there. Tell me more, right? So you're a bit deferential. You don't argue right away.
But doesn't this go against all of your upbringing in feminism?
It doesn't.
Because so you're supposed to be a person that stands on your own 2 feet. You're supposed to be equal, head to head with anybody that you meet. So why would you act deferential? Why would you act like the little lady?
Because
Wouldn't you want to show a little bit of threatening behavior just so that they know that you're equal?
I want them in those scenarios, because I don't use it all the time. In those scenarios, I want them to open up to me. And that is how I have found, for me personally, that works. I want somebody to feel open and comfortable with me in those scenarios. I think it's in line with I don't think it goes against feminism, because I'm not, I have my core beliefs about equality and equity, and those would come into play. Like, it's not like, if I am really, if I'm advocating for the rights to do something, that I would have that persona on. I'd have a different persona on, right? And me having one interaction with an individual, right in the beginning of the relationship that we're building, I don't think it damages, right? I think it would be more damaging for me to come in with like a hardcore persona of like, it's so nice to meet you.
I'm a threat.
I
burn bras. I'll burn one on your front porch.
Like, I'm not going to tap you on the shoulder. I'm going to stomp on your foot, right? Like, I just think in the agency teaches us this, right? I mean, oh my gosh, some of the people that spies recruit are horrible people, right? Like they're people that do heinous things, but you have to develop a relationship with them,
right?
To influence, to gather intelligence. Like you have to do it.
And if you came in as a threat, if you came in as a ball buster, those heinous people are hypersensitive to anybody who could potentially unmask them for what they are. So you have to appear quiet, and you have to appear deferential. If you want a heinous person to demonstrate their true heinous tendencies, because they don't show that side of their life unless they're very confident the person they're talking to is like submissive to them.
Right. And the great thing about a persona is it's something you put on and take off, right? So you're not going in there as Andy, and Andy has to start believing in these horrible things to make friends, right? Like Andy's not going in there. Andy's persona named Bob is going in there, right? So then when you get home, you remove that.
No offense to all the Bobs out there.
Yes. But we have had friends who have worked, deep undercover in law enforcement at the agency, and that's what they do. They put on a persona before they go out into the field, and then when they come home, they take off the persona. And some of them who are really deep undercover,
they live in that persona for a long time. Yeah.
And it takes them days to put it on and take it off, right? Your average person can have more minor personas that they use in different situations.
So there are two stories that come to my mind, right? So the first is the fact that what you're talking about is a lesson that we learned at the agency called being the dumbest person in the room, which is an idea that you're not a dumb person.
Right.
You just want all the other people in the room to think of you as the dumbest person in the room.
To underestimate you.
To underestimate you, exactly. Because if they underestimate you at the beginning, then the probability is they will always underestimate you until the end. Because they'll always be double checking anything they suspect against their first impression. To be like, oh, maybe that person's smarter than I once thought. Probably not, right?
And
maybe that person knows more than what I thought. Probably not. Like they will forever underestimate you. So that's a huge advantage. Is if you can get people to underestimate you at the beginning, you can basically count on them continuing to underestimate you for the entirety of your relationship.
But I also think that being underestimated is something, if you choose to, you can turn around.
For sure.
Right.
Right. And that's I think where your point is really powerful. You're underestimated at the beginning, essentially so that you can slot yourself in to being in a relationship with a person of interest, whether that's an intelligence target or some other target, because you will be able to go along with them without ever threatening them. So even as you assert your knowledge and you assert your power and you assert your leverage more and more, they still don't see you as a threat, even though you are becoming a genuine threat, right? Like in any spy relationship, there's a handler and an asset.
Right.
The handler handles the asset. Like the handler is a huge threat, but the asset continues to believe that they're the one in control when they're not.
Right.
That's how compromised they are. They don't even realize it, right? So it's really interesting that you're exactly right. It's this idea of coming in your persona, the little lady. People are like forever, they assume, well, Jihi's just a little lady. Jihi is just, she's kind and she's sweet, but she's, she doesn't know much and she doesn't talk much. And that's exactly what I like. And then by the time you're in like total control of the relationship, they still love you. And that's the thing that's so fascinating to me is that people love you forever. Like you have friends that you've had since like high school. I have yet to meet a single person who has ever said anything bad about you. I mean, a solid 60% of the people who meet me have something bad to say about me.
Really?
Oh my gosh, yeah. They have something to criticize. They have something, I'm arrogant, I'm rude, I talk too much, and they're not wrong. But my little Andy persona or my little man persona.
I don't know if you have a little Andy persona.
Exactly. it's hard, right? I can do the dumbest guy in the room thing for sure, but it always like it just doesn't have the resilience that your persona does, and it's really been fascinating to me because it must be something that you come by naturally. And it's fascinating that you have such a natural relationship with this persona while also being raised in a feminist household.
Well, I think that...
Because, I'm sorry to interrupt you one more time, why people don't like me. Because you are also female. So you're a female using the little lady persona, which is essentially a sexist idea that people have against women anyways. So you're using kind of inherent sexism to get what you want. I mean, do you see why I call you brilliant? Do you see why I put a ring on your finger? Because it's pretty badass.
Oh, well, I'm so glad to know that. So one, I think, so a couple things. One, I think that, that personas really, it's going to be difficult to create a persona if you don't have any of the attributes of that persona, right? Any of the characteristics. Like your persona, it's like when you're playing D&D and you pick your character, right? Like
D&D, Dungeons and Dragons.
Sorry, Dungeons and Dragons. And you pick your character.
Not everybody knows what it's like to play D&D.
Sorry. But anyways, when you pick your character, it's like picking your persona. You are choosing things, there's at least one small part of it that you relate to, right? That is a part of your personality. Maybe it's not dominant, but it makes it easier for you to play that character, to use that persona. The other thing is, because I am a feminist in my heart, right? And I know that it's, when I use the little lady persona, I know I am playing on, depending on who it is, right? But that in some situations, I am dealing with, a person who is sexist, male or female, right? A person, because it can go both ways.
And we're all a little bit sexist.
Right.
Because all of us have been conditioned in some way to have a relationship with the opposite sex.
Right.
So we've all got varying levels of like preconditioned sexism.
Right. Prejudgments and, concepts. So, I know that the little lady persona can play on those, but the feminist in me is like, in this half-hour interaction, I am not going to change this person's mind on how women should be, on how men should be, how the relationship should be, and gender roles. I'm not gonna. This isn't the time or the place. Yeah. And me doing this so I can get to know them better, right? So I can build an open relationship with them. Like, it's not hurting anything.
So let me ask you this: we have an intel peer. Who was part of an Eastern European intelligence agency. And she is another brilliant, beautiful female spy. Yeah. Right? And we've worked with her. We know her well. We're friends with her. She has a completely different point of view on this than you do. Because she doesn't have a little lady persona. Yeah. She has like the sultry lady persona.
Yeah.
Like she actively leans into her beauty and her, her dark eyes and her curvy body and like she absolutely presents it all.
Yes.
Again, as a way of like disarming.
It's
but
very disarming.
It
even
is.
For women, even for me.
Yes.
Right? It's very disarming.
So she disarms both men and women by being hyper feminine.
Yes.
You disarm both men and women by being a little lady, like not being hyper feminine, but being like hyper deferential. Yeah. Is this an example of two people using the same tool two different ways? Or is there like help me understand, help me find the words I can't use because I'm afraid of pissing off women.
Yeah. So I think, like we were saying before, the personas that people use come from something that's natural within them. So she is naturally, I think, from what I know of her, like she is naturally beautiful visually, but she is also naturally feminine. And that comes across really well. So I think
it doesn't seem artificial.
Right. It's not artificial. She's not trying to be feminine. She is naturally feminine. So her persona just kind of dials that up and to make it more disarming. Right. And
it's funny because I think when we call it disarming, what we're really saying is it's very attractive. Men find her feminism like comforting and predictable, which is probably why she loves it, because she can anticipate the motive, the mood, the decisions and the thought process of every man around her.
Yeah.
Because she's this very classic feminine woman. And then women also are attracted to her femininity because in it they see the classic femininity of the past, right?
They either see a reflection of, depending on the woman, they see a reflection of themselves. They see something that they could be, or they see something that they want to be.
That's true.
And all of those things help you as a woman relate to her.
Yep.
And then when she speaks to you, she's not like a conceited hottie.
Right.
She is feminine.
Yep.
So when she speaks to you, it's soft, it's open, it's inviting, right? It's not just the way she looks, it's her mannerisms and the words that she uses, right? It's you feel supported by her when you have a conversation with her. You feel like she's listening to you.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I feel like what we're talking about is kind of getting into the realm of what in military terms we call hard power and soft power.
Yes.
Because when men interact with other men, especially traditional stereotypical men,
right,
it's like we have to be hard. It's about power and strength and like...
Who has the biggest stick?
Yeah, right?
I said stick, by the way. Just gonna put that out there.
But for real, no, you're not lying. There is an element of like, in order for me to respect you, I have to push you around and you have to push me back.
Right.
That's all hard power. That's very much like saber rattling in the geopolitical world, or you build a nuclear bomb, I build a nuclear bomb. You have a stealth fighter, I have a stealth fighter. Hard power versus soft power, which is what you're explaining with yourself and with this other female spy that we work with, and with a number of, I'm guessing, like intelligent females of all varieties. They've probably all figured this out, this thing that I am just now coming to realize.
Yeah.
That you can be non-threatening and you can be disarming in a soft way.
Right.
But that doesn't make you a soft person.
Right. And so, like, geopolitically, that looks like building infrastructure in another country.
Foreign aid.
Education. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's all soft power, and it's really powerful.
Right.
Because that is how you actually build the roots of a relationship, right? Hard power, it's just a bunch of threatening, and you can lose your spot at any time. But soft power lasts, right? People remember that. I think I've told you before, one of the things that endears me, we have a friend who, what's the most endearing about her is how she treats my children. Because every time we are with her, she is so good to them. And that right there lasts. Like, she has a place in my heart forever because of how she treats my children. That's soft power.
Yeah. And it's really powerful because hard power is almost temporary.
Yeah.
Because it's always competitive.
Yep.
But soft power is sticky because it's there and it doesn't really ever go away. Right. Just like, one day our children will be adults. We won't care. We will still always remember how that friend treats our children.
Yes.
Right. Even now, it's been probably a solid half year or a year since we've worked with that Eastern European foreign intelligence officer that we've been talking about. And so much of her style and her skill in espionage, it sticks.
Yeah.
It sticks because it's so soft. We have dozens of examples of hard case officers who have done hard things. Yeah. And inevitably we end up not liking them, right? But the softer folks, the folks who actually learn how to make themselves memorable in a positive way, they have that soft power.
Yeah.
So this all brings me to the question that I wanted to talk about today, which is really interesting because at first I was a little curious how I was going to even be able to answer this question. But somebody wrote in and said, how is it that Andy, me, how did I rise so quickly through the corporate ranks at CVS Health, which was the first company I worked for after we left CIA?
Yep.
How did I rise through the ranks so quickly at CVS Health using skills that I had learned at CIA?
Right.
And when I first kind of read that article, where my mind went is I was like, oh, well, it's because CIA taught me how to learn a new skill quickly, right? And I worked as an IT project manager for CVS Health. I was working within 7 or 8 months after I left CIA. And I knew nothing about IT and I knew nothing about project management.
Yep.
I fraudulently got myself the job, and there's no way around lying about that.
Well, because we were still undercover.
We were still undercover.
Yeah, we had a covered resume, which was horrible.
But when I was hired, I had to quickly learn, how am I going to continue to pretend like I know what I'm talking about? Yeah. And I 100% used all the skills that CIA taught about how you learn quickly, how you retain information, how you essentially professionally fake it until you make it, right? So I was thinking, I'm going to answer this question. I'm going to talk about my adaptability and talk about rapid learning styles and talk about memory tools and talk about all these these tactical stuff. What I'm realizing now after this conversation is that the real reason I rose to the ranks was because I made myself sticky. Because I went in there and I was the dumbest guy in the room, figuratively and literally. And I just used it as an opportunity to learn.
Yeah.
And, everybody, all the male personalities that were in that career field at the time, right? IT project management, that's a heavily male-dominated career field. They were all fighting with each other all the time. Documentation should be this way, format should be this, yada, yada, yada. And I just kind of came in and I was like, hey guys, tell me what I can do to help whatever you're trying to accomplish.
Yes.
And then through that process, the natural evolution of things happened, and that the people who were the most threatening, they were either asked to leave or they were fired or they were promoted. And the guy that ended up getting promoted up the chain the fastest was me. Not because I was accidentally promoted, but because I had taken a passive stance where I was learning everything instead of trying to show off what I had learned. And then I was helping everybody, which just made more people want to work with me. So, I found my way rising through the ranks very, very quickly without having to be like you said, the conceited hottie. Is that what you call it?
The conceited hottie.
Instead of being some conceited, skilled person, I was just sticky.
Yeah. And you teach this in some of your courses, the idea that when you're in a work situation, you should be asking, what does my boss need?
Right.
What does my coworker need? And because that is, when we've talked about this before, that is how you build social capital, right? And then as you're building social capital, you can, trade that in for other things, right? And part of what you trade it in for is opportunity, right?
Promotions. I mean, it's amazing that you can turn people's good favor towards you. You can actually turn that into money.
Yeah.
If people like you at work, you can ask them to promote you, and they probably will.
Yeah. And
people don't realize how powerful that really is.
Yes.
And you're right. We teach this in our Winning the Workplace ebook. We teach this in all of our workplace education, where folks who are trying to build a career need to start seeing their career through the eyes of their supervisor.
Right.
Because their supervisor looks at them as an asset.
Yes.
So any asset that produces is an asset everybody wants to keep.
Right.
When too often we think of ourselves in our career as we're in control, like we're the handler and the company we work for is our asset.
Yeah.
Like that puts you in constant competition. Yes. Now you're in the area of hard power.
Right.
You can absolutely look at your asset. You can look at your company as your asset. You can look at your career as something you're in control of. 100% you can do that.
Yeah.
But the way that you succeed is when you do that and you give the appearance that is soft power.
Yes.
You give the appearance of, I'm here to help you.
Right.
I'm invested in this company. I want to see everybody succeed. All of a sudden, people give you they funnel opportunity to you.
Yes.
Because you are either what they want to be, what they see themselves as, or what was the third thing? You have 3 great examples, and I want to remember those forever.
Or what they currently are.
are.
So they can relate to you in some way, and that makes you stick.
Right. So I guess, the short answer to the question, how did I rise through the ranks? I rose through the ranks by appearing disarming and by appearing non-threatening and by enabling other people to succeed.
Yes.
And by enabling other people to succeed on their rise up, they wanted to take me with them because they understood I was the asset that helped them succeed. Yep. And that's exactly how it turned out. When I came in as a senior analyst, I left 4 years later as a senior advisor, 4 promotions in 4 years. And every one of those promotional steps, the same senior leader, I was following them all the way up.
Yeah.
they were 2 steps above me, but they were rising through the ranks and they just kept pulling me along with them.
Yeah.
Right? They're like, that Andy guy doesn't threaten me and he helps me get my shit done. He's coming with me.
Yep.
And it was really useful.
Yeah.
It was really useful. Thank you very much. That was an awesome conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you for helping me learn about my inner feminist.
You're welcome.
And now I think the next thing we have to train me for is how to be like a little man persona.
I don't know if that little man persona is going to work for you. We'll have to figure something else out.
Something else is also non-threatening. Maybe
Yes.
a goofy man persona. I don't. The D&D
That'll work.
persona. The D&D, the nerd persona.
Oh, it's going to be so great. I'm so excited right now.
Oh my gosh. If I become too much of a nerd, I'm afraid that's going to turn you on. That's
Well,
my
yeah. Isn't that what you want? Duh.
True. This will be worth investing our time in.
Yes,
This will be
let's
worth
practice.
investing our time in. Thank you very much for joining us today. I hope you had as much fun as I did exploring this idea of femininity versus feminist and how we can use both of them to our operational advantage to get what we want in life, to get what we want at work, to get what we want in the career place, to get what we want in business, and apparently to get what we want at home too, because I'm about to learn how to be a nerd. For sure. If you have any comments, please leave them. Let us know what your thoughts were. Let us know any questions you have. If you want to give us feedback on the conversation topics, or if you disagree or agree with anything, please leave it in the comments. We want to hear your thoughts. We want to hear what you have to say. And of course, take a moment to click on the sponsor link that we have below. Go ahead, visit Aura. Take a look at aura.com/everydayspy. They really are a fantastic tool if you're looking for a solution to protect your identity, protect your family, protect your data. They've been fantastic for me. I want to make sure that you get a chance to know what their product is, what their service is, and how it works. And with all that, we will see you on the next show. Take care.